Welcome back to Tonight on Breaking. It's now 18 weeks to the 2023 general election, and the flood crisis is currently wreaking havoc across the states in the country. According to the National Emergency Management Agency, NEMA, the flood crisis in the country has been disastrous this year. It has killed at least 300 people in the last month and has displaced over 600,000 from their homes. It has destroyed farmlands, roads, and houses. Over the course of last week to this week, floods in places like Lokoja in Kogi State and the southeastern state of Anambra has affected economic activities and has left thousands of residents and travelers stranded. In Anambra on Friday, 76 people died while trying to flee the dangerously high flood waters. Almost every year during the rainy season, we experience floods in different parts of the country, but somehow not very much is done to address the issue. Back in 2012, we had almost the same level of flood crisis we are having now. Over 2.1 million persons were displaced from their homes and over 400 persons died. And some of the reasons for our flood crisis include our inadequate drainage systems, weak dams, poor town planning, and unregulated development. People are literally building houses next to rivers. These are the issues we should bring before our presidential candidates when they arrive at their rallies in 12 private jets. After we're done with the dancing and waving of brooms, we should be asking them what solution and plans they have prepared for issues like this. On to some good news. On Wednesday last week, the remaining 23 kidnapped victims from the Abuja-Kaduna train finally regained their freedom. The Chief of Defense Staff, General Irabo, had established a 7-man presidential committee who worked to secure the release of the remaining hostages. Remember that back in March, terrorists bombed the Kaduna-Abuja rail line and abducted over 60 passengers on board. Between June and August, a number of the abductees were released after allegedly paying huge ransoms to the terrorists. In some cases, the relatives of the victims had to sell landed property and other valuables to raise the ransom required. I'm glad the remaining kidnapped victims have been finally released safely and returned to their loved ones. After spending 191 days in captivity, I cannot even begin to imagine the trauma of that experience, and I just hope they get the help they need. But I do have one question though. What happened to the terrorists involved? Were they arrested? Were they forgiven? Were they given chieftaincy titles? Did they vanish into thin air? Are they ever going to be held accountable for putting those innocent lives through hell for 191 days? Moving on Monday this week, an illegal oil bunkering ship was destroyed by operatives of the Nigerian Navy in Delta State. According to security operatives, the ship was used for moving crude oil illegally for years, and it was scheduled to take the stolen crude to Ghana before it was seized. According to Punch newspapers, about 600 to 650 cubic meters of the stolen oil was found in 5 compartments on board when the ship was seized. The ship, which, by the way, is both a crime scene and evidence of a crime, was publicly set on fire by the military on the Warri River at about 3 p.m. in the presence of journalists. Okay, I have some questions. What happened to the crude oil found on the vessel? Is the oil still on the ship? Because to the best of my knowledge, that's not how a ship with crude oil is meant to burn. In other news, Bola Tinubu, the presidential candidate for the APC, has returned from the UK. On Monday, he made his first big appearance at the APC's Women's Campaign Council at the Presidential Villa in Abuja. The event was attended by the Women's Campaign Grand Patron Aisha Buhari, Oluremi Tinubu, the chair, and Hajia Nana Shettima, co-chair. During the event, Tinubu gave a speech. In the speech, Tinubu informed his supporters that the peace and security that people want is finally here. Here's some of what he said.
And particularly the women gathered here today. Let me say one thing. Help is here. Hope is here. Assurance is here. Promise is here. Prosperity is here. Health is here. Security is here. Banditry has ended.
Where was all of that help, hope, security for the past 7 years that your party has been in power? Why bring it now? I'll tell you why. Because politicians know that you have short memories. The fact that banditry is reducing now should tell you that they could have ended banditry 3 years ago before it got this bad. But then you will forget that they ended banditry 3 years ago. So in order to ensure that you remember that it was their party who ended banditry, they waited until now, 5 months before the election, and allowed thousands of lives to be lost and disrupted in the process. But if any of you complain about the over 35,000 reported lives lost in deadly violence across the country since 2015, or about the person who was shot dead by gunmen in the upper class neighborhood of Abuja just this week, here's what Tinubu has to say to you.
If they say they want a change of government, just tell them, we like to be polite, but shut up your mouth.
That's all for tonight on Breaking. I'm John Iwodi. Don't stop asking the critical question of how, when presidential candidates make big promises at the different campaign events. How do they plan to fulfill all these promises? How will they get money to execute their plans? Ask how. Think about the answer given and vote wisely. Thank you.